Fritz Lang's Metropolis is a staple of cinema. For any film student, this is a must-watch to grasp the influences on modern filmmaking and futuristic societies. Created all the way back in 1927 Germany, Fritz Lang was able to adapt Theo von Haber's novel of the same title and begin a new era of filmmaking. The film presents Metropolis, a city in which the rich grow richer in their powerful surface utopia, while the poor slave away to make the city work. It deals with themes of rebellion and class divide, while also feeding into the current political situation in Germany at the time. Lang is able to transcend the norms of filmmaking, experimenting with grand sets and ideas to push his audience forward. Now, this 153-minute feature does have its flaws, but the fact that it's crucial in today's society proves how important the film is. As a first review for this channel, I thought this film was fitting, as it essentially started the wave of modern cinema. It's one of those films that a lot of people know of and know the influences derived from it, but have never seen. In my case, I was given it as a gift from my uncle. He's a drama teacher and really into this sort of stuff, so I watched it with a friend of mine from college. We're on film studies, so it makes sense. And a few weeks later, I discovered it's also available as a full film on YouTube. Go find that for yourself. What I found hilarious about our copy of the film was that due to it being an old film, a lot of it is found footage, and they've sort of Frankensteined it back together with some very high quality footage and others not so much. Towards the end of the film, there's an action scene where supposedly quite a lot happens, where there just appeared a bunch of text on screen explaining what had happened because the scene doesn't exist anymore. So that was fun. Anyways, let's move on to discuss this film in more depth. There are obviously going to be many historical influences over this film, seeing as it came out in the golden age of Germany following the First World War. Lang wanted to convey a world of control and industrialization, which were two key themes in the coming of the Second World War and the First. In 1927, Germany had hit a golden age of art, giving Lang the platform to explore the recent events of the country. The world around him had changed significantly in this time, giving influence to the almost alien set design of the era of modernism. Lang had recently visited New York for the first time, and found the architecture almost stark and jarring, wanting this to influence his work. He was also heavily inspired by the Art Deco movement, giving the overall world a traditional and modern feel at the same time, truly making it futuristic and strange. You quickly go from large Gothic cathedrals to running around dimly lit catacombs to unassuming rundown houses that are hiding futuristic lamps like the inventors. The scale of some of the sets in this film are overwhelming even for today's audience. Think of what it must have been like back then when film was a rare thing anyway. This film set a precedent for larger blockbuster movies to come, but for now these vast sets were purely made to highlight the context and themes of this world. The conflict between the workers and the surface presents a simplistic interpretation of fascism and communism, much to some of the audience's displeasure at the time. But all of the above is used to flesh out this world using themes Lang had already seen emerging in the world around him. Theo von Haber was Lang's wife and solely wrote the novel to be adapted into a film. The two worked on a few of Lang's projects together, so she is as much to thank for the industry-shaking event that was Metropolis as he was. There were many elements in the novel that weren't used in the final film, but were recycled in Lang's future projects. There were whole subplots about going to the moon and magic, and quite frankly I'm glad they were removed. The film's already 2.5 hours, and that would have got a little complicated. Although many of you watching this probably haven't seen the film, you'd know of it in some ways. The influence it's had over big blockbusters and smaller scale movies in the industry over the year has been significant. Being the first feature to truly get into utopias and futuristic settings, such franchises as Star Wars, Blade Runner, and The Fifth Element have all taken influence from this film. This feature was a push for dystopian worlds that still continue to this date. So I'm guessing that you haven't seen this film, so let's just run through the basic plot so you get a bit more of an understanding. Spoiler alert, if you care that much about a film that came out almost 100 years ago. Honestly, knowing where this film's going won't really change your views on the production, so here goes. Essentially, the film follows Frida, the son of the city's master. Frida follows a woman, Maria, to the lower levels of Metropolis, where the workers keep the city running. Maria is a symbol of hope for the workers, and Frida spends his time exploring the tragic nature of their lives. Maria holds secret meetings in the catacombs beneath the city with the workers, but John, the city's master, finds a map to it from a dead body and is able to track them. Then, now stay with me here, there's the inventor, who is so obsessed with John's dead wife that he decided to make a robot of her. As you do. In the catacombs, the inventor captures Maria and swaps her out for the robot he's now put her face on to lead the worker rebellion to their doom and destroy themselves. What a great guy. This causes Metropolis to flood, because why not? And Frida and Maria work together to save the workers. In the end, the fake robot Maria is burnt at the stake because they think she's a witch. Frida and the inventor have a battle on a roof, which predictably ends in the inventor falling to his death, and the workers and the surface people will come to an agreement, so that's good. Some positives came out of that. I hope that rundown kind of makes sense, and that is the main plot for a 2.5 hour film. Not too much going on there. It was interesting to see how much time they needed to cover that plot. Due to it being a silent film, every now and again they needed to stop to put the dialogue on screen. Back then, shots were vastly drawn out as well. People's attention spans were a lot longer than they are now because we consume a lot more media. The people needed time to consume this stuff. It wasn't every day you go and see a film. Towards the end of the film, it did get slightly messy between two storylines, cutting back and forth a lot, and there was a lot of unnecessary shots going on. A lot of these were unnecessary because you could already get an idea of the scene going forward. The whole flood thing felt like it kind of influenced the Batman, in that it kind of just happened with no proper lead-in. I get that the lower city was falling apart, but there wasn't really a reason for it. In fact, there's a lot of noticeable movie trends that started in this film that are executed alright here as it's a first, but over the years they've declined in quality quite significantly. The inventor is a classic villain who has a stark appearance and simple enough motivation that he paved the way for powerhouse villains over the decades. Even the plot itself has been recycled multiple times. A rebellion in a dystopian world rising up against the ruling capital. Sounds very familiar, doesn't it? What's great about this is it doesn't confine itself to one genre like many did at the time. Lang is able to experiment with multiple themes, even a romance angle with Frida and Maria, akin to something like Romeo and Juliet, with Frida being from the surface world of the rich and powerful, and Maria being a symbol of hope for the workers. These two characters come from very different backgrounds, but they want to defy the social hierarchy and be together. It makes for a great story. There is also further exploration into Frida's life in the city, showing how different it is from the tragedy the workers are facing. We see his father, the city master, trying to mould him into a future version of himself. The theme of fathers and sons finding domestic conflict and succession is still very apparent in today's world of media. John even goes out of his way to get one of his men, the Thin Man, to track Frida's every movement and discovery. The last theme I want to touch on is this idea of a chosen one, because of course this film has to have one. Wouldn't be the film to boost all blockbusters if it didn't have that old chestnut, eh? We never learn. Frida is referred to as the mediator by Maria later in the film. Basically, this is a prophecy of someone bringing the city and the working people together. Unlike many chosen one dynamics in modern cinema, this feels necessary to the story and a natural progression, and really doesn't mean anything. Frida isn't told early on that this is some destiny he must live up to. He's just a man who wants to discover and help the working people when he sees what they're suffering with. And also get with Maria. Maria mentions a mediator in her rallying speeches, but never once do they turn around and say this must be Frida, until right at the end when John and the general of the workers shake hands, and they just have it as a passing comment that that is the position that Frida has fulfilled. That's quite nice actually. This is a great example of using this trope though. It doesn't put the character on a pedestal immediately or give them essentially plot immunity until they do the important thing they're always destined to do. He learns, he brings knowledge from both sides of the world, and he just naturally puts these two connections together. He's chosen his destiny, and the prophecy only confirms that there is someone who is going to do that in the future. Yes, I do get that he is the son of the city master, but he's gone out of his way to explore on his own. He could have really been anyone, and that's what's great about him. In a way, he has honoured his father's legacy in a way that his father probably didn't expect. He's come closer with the workers to bring Metropolis together truly, and form one great city. I want to look into the performances of the actors in a little more depth. There is a massive difference between acting in a silent film and modern cinema due to the context and obviously dialogue. In a silent film, you're more akin to something like theatre, where your expression must reach the people at the back of the room, and you can be loud and extravagant and really put your message across. However, with modern film, you want to feel more personal and human. The standout performance for me was Bridget Helm as her performance in Maria and the Robot. Especially when the scenes collide over the climax, you really get a definition of who these two different characters are. Maria is a caring and hopeful symbol who spends most of her time rallying the troops and being in captivity and a bit afraid and panicked and your classic damsel in distress sort of stuff, you know. On the other hand, when she's acting as if the robot is being her, she's this malevolent force of nature that really drives the workers and is a bit evil. Just kind of wants to destroy a city. She's essentially created to lead the workers down a dark path to their own self-inflicted destruction. Happy days for the inventor, I guess. Her performance and contrast between these two characters really helps the viewer navigate the film. Another performance worth mentioning is Rudolf Klein-Rogge as the inventor. You get the impression of this man who's gone crazy after an infatuation with a woman he never had. Really quite sad. This obsession leads him down an extremely dark path that really makes you think if he's the monster rather than the monster he's created. Or robot, in this case. It's generally an interesting theme to discuss, as how evil is a creation rather than its creator. Although his demise is lacking and somewhat predictable, he becomes a genuinely threatening villain towards the centre of the film when he's chasing Maria around in the catacombs. It's quite horrifying. And let's not forget his hook hand. Man, the number of times he mentions that thing throughout the film, and it's a silent film. Knowing cinema, one day someone's gonna make a prequel about his hook hand and how it came to be. I'm not doing that. Don't do that. We do not need to keep making unneeded films about other films. You hear me? You hear me? And of course we have to mention the lead of the film, Gustav Frölich as Frida. To be honest, I found Frida quite dull, but he is the protagonist and the audience's stand-in to discover this world, so the reactions you see are what you feel, which is necessary. He does become infatuated with Maria and spend quite a lot of time running around after her rather than doing his own thing. However, through his performance, you do get the impression of this kind, selfless man who's willing to stand in for one of the workers instead of him working to death when he just met him. What a nice guy. The chemistry between him and Maria is fine, it's your classic love story, but me and my friend thought he had more chemistry with this one guy called Josephat that he kept bumping into, and we were kind of hoping that the two of them would run off together. His conflict with his father gives him a bit more depth and range. You can really feel that this is a child who's trying to prove himself and stand up for what he cares for. Overall, he's a decent protagonist, and to be honest, protagonists are usually the characters I like the least in these sort of films. They just act as your viewpoint into the world, and you follow them around to meet all these other cool characters along the way. So he does a serviceable job. Overall, I'm glad I've seen this film, but will likely not be seeing it again. I believe it's essential for any film student, or anyone just generally interested in the media. It holds a lot of what makes cinema great today. It establishes many ever-present themes and genres in a time where people needed escapism and beauty outside of the real world. Director Fritz Lang worked this magnificent vision to perfection and creates an awe-inspiring world of the future that still uses steam trains. It's been interesting to look back on classic media and how the industry has evolved. I hope this has been interesting for both you and me in exploring it. Now let's do a rating. I'm going to put this at a 7 out of 10, mainly giving it this for its influential purposes and the craftsmanship that went into this film at the time. I can forgive most of its flaws as it is a product of its time. Anyways, if you haven't already and you're interested, go check this film out. It's decent. So I hope you enjoyed this first video essay for this channel. Go check out some of the other crazy stuff I've got going on. We have Dungeons and Dragons stuff, we have a podcast now available here, and some promos just releasing weekly. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and comment about the film if you've seen it. Let's get a discussion going. Hopefully I'm back next week with another Friday video, so keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, know you're awesome, and have a great week. See you next time. Still not got a sign off. Please someone send anything. Just, I need something, okay? Bye.